organizational escape rooms, if stress builds up, if emotions build up and they remain unresolved, and people are uncomfortable with coming to work, something's going to happen. You need to have a way for people to escape sometimes the daily stress, but if you don't create one, they're going to make one themselves. EVLN. People respond to dissatisfaction in different ways. Sometimes they just leave. I'm done. I'm out of here. And it's incredible. In the year 2021, 11.3 million Americans just up and quit their jobs. Now, the next year, 2022, 3.3 million came back, but we lost a lot of people out of the workforce. It's the strangest year ever in employment history recorded that many terminations were left voluntarily is incredible. But exit, people leave the situation. Sometimes they voice the issue. They want to change the problem. I have this going on and I like to have it resolved. Sometimes they just sit back like good soldiers and they just kind of wait for the commander to speak up. Maybe someday they'll get around to solving this problem. They wait for things to improve. And sometimes they'll be unhappy. They may not like it. And sometimes they just check out and they show up and they do quiet quitting. Their absenteeism increases. You can see those people, especially on the Fridays and Mondays. They like to leave early Friday or skip it all together and come in late Monday or skip that all together, maybe both. So it's EVLN. They'll exit. They'll voice their concern, they'll just sit back like good soldiers, or they'll neglect everything about work and just kind of check out in the world. Job satisfaction and performance. For years, there were tests that were out there, even in my case, my dissertation, I checked this aspect, the relationship of job satisfaction and performance. And there are studies since 2001, the first one was in Ann Arbor, where they compared the job satisfaction to the service industry, that you will see a correlation. It's only moderate, but generally, attitudes are poor predictors of specific behavior, but employees have little control sometimes over the performance of the organization, especially when they have a level of frustration. But performance causes satisfaction, but sometimes dissatisfaction can enhance performance, especially if it's not rewarded. So there is a correlation between how much a person likes doing their work and their overall performance, but it's not super strong. So that shouldn't be your main focal point. Your main focal point is to go and make certain that the person is being listened to and that they have an opportunity to speak. On job satisfaction, it increases the customer satisfaction, therefore profits. And there's been several tests ever since then, but you'll see over here, the organizational practices, when the employee satisfaction is really positive, the employee will tend to stay longer and the service quality actually improves. But make certain that you build in it that this is only a side component. Don't stop there by having satisfied employees. Make certain you're satisfied to the point that you're listening to them, because listening is a big skill that we're going to cover a lot later on. So we call affective commitment, the emotional attachment and identification with the organization. If you have a good employee, you want them to feel an attachment to the organization. It reduces the turnover, which is very expensive, by the way. It improves the higher motivation and what we call the organizational citizenship. It actually means something. Sometimes people are proud to be part of an organization. If you can develop that type of camaraderie, that aspect of a spirit de corps, you want to make certain that you can reduce that turnover and get people to be proud of the purpose of the organization. Then you have a commitment and a long-term one, and you'll have a higher success rate. Sometimes people, they just says, okay, it's easier to stay here than go someplace else. Shoot, if I leave now, I got 17 years in. If I live through 3 more years of this misery, I can leave in 20 and get a decent pension plan. Leaving is difficult. People really don't want to, because that's always change, and that change is just around the corner. You don't know what it's going to be. So that person can sit down and say, the grass is always greener. I see her over there. She's over there. Oh my gosh, that's not greener. That grass looks awful brown and a lot of weeds there. Okay, so maybe I'll just stay right here. That's sometimes happens. So you want to really have that commitment. Sometimes you just feel that you have a duty to stay there. So sometimes take advantage of that. But really, if somebody feels duty bound to stay there and they don't have a joy coming in every single day, you need to do something if you have the opportunity, especially if you want to be a quote unquote a leader in that organization. Sometimes there's an organizational justice, which is a big deal. I had a guy that I knew, he worked with somebody and he didn't trust anybody in leadership because of an incident that happened years before, and that organizational justice didn't exist. And all of a sudden a person showed up and it was like a beam of light into his world that, yes, there is hope. Yes, this organization is worthwhile. And sometimes you could be that ray of hope in the process. A lot of times you want to have a sense of values in the organization. Values are top-down oriented, not bottom-up. But if you have an identification with the leadership that I value the same thing that leader has, then all of a sudden now you may have a cause, you may have a passion about what you're doing. You may actually trust that person and you have expectation towards that person and other people that are all carrying the same torch, the same passion, the same fire. Employees want to trust management, but management has to trust the employees. Personally, I trust people over technology any day of the week, because if I want to get something done, I can't talk to my computer. I can't motivate my computer to do it. I can motivate somebody else on their computer to do it by giving them the passion and the perspective that I might have as well. So pay attention to all the different things on the aspect of the internal thing, that fire that's inside of us to drive us forward. Organizational comprehension, how well employees understand the organization. Make certain, and I have this big belief that the biggest training you could possibly ever have in an organization, we talk about staff development, and yes, I built that. I had a catalog of 64 different training methods and everything else. The best training you could possibly ever give an employee is an orientation, a solid orientation that doesn't take just one time, but a series of stuff over 4 or 5 weeks to begin with, and then at least once a month for the first year. Keep on top of them, keep that employee knowledgeable about the things that are in writing about the organization, and also maybe even more importantly, the things that are not in writing, that informal organization that you never can commit to writing, is just stuck in memory. And oh yeah, we've always done it that way. They need to know that as well. The psychological ownership and identity with the company, that really helps them to be part of that. People can and will respond, but they may never tell you that exit, voice, speaking up, that loyalty because and neglect, they end up festering until action or inaction take place. Sometimes people just let it fester and they check out and they don't care. There's a moderate relation between job satisfaction and overall performance, and people stay for various reasons. But the more anchors you can sit down and create them within the organization, the higher the probability is that they'll remain in your organization and not take advantage of that escape route. Take care.